Hey guys, what's going on? This is Ed from vinylalbumcovers.com. And here we go again, episode 2 of Hot Garbage. So, I should start off by telling you, without reservation, the Temptations are my favorite vocal group of all time. They have released classics. It's hard to believe that they've been around since 1961, and a form of them is still out there today. Otis Williams is still out there today, with a version of the group featuring Ron Tyson, who's been there since 1983, Terry Weeks, who's been there for a very long time. So it's, these fine gentlemen have experience. They've been around for a while. They even picked up one of the singers from Ain't Too Proud to Beg, the musical, in order to take up the bass slot. So it's an interesting form of the group these days. But you can't argue with the classics that come from the Temptations. You just can't. I mean, for me, in terms of vocal groups, the Temptations are home for me. They really are. They're just, how they were able to keep up with the changing times is probably the most impressive thing. I mean, let's think about this for a second, right? So they started hitting their stride in the 60s. They continued into the 70s with a changed sound. They changed their sound again in the 80s and continued going to less success, but they kept going. In the 90s, they changed their sound again and kept going. In the 2000s, again, changed sound, and they're still going even today. Wasn't too long ago that they put out another album, so they're still even releasing music. They're not content to just be a nostalgia act, which I think is very admirable. But for a group that's been around this long, the album, by the way, the relatively new album they put out is called All the Time. I don't want to leave that out. It's even out there on vinyl. It's a good record. But at any rate, so in order to get to this, we should talk a little bit about kind of what got them to this point. And I'll be quick about it. In 1976, things began to go south. Actually, I think it was probably 1975, because I think that's when House Party came out. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But House Party was kind of this hodgepodge of B-sides and things that the Temptations were not involved with compiling. Motown put it out under the guidance of Jeffrey Bowman. Jeffrey Bowen, Ed, think. Yeah, Jeffrey Bowen. Motown staff producer. And the group was none too pleased with it. They really didn't like the record. Otis had choice words for it in his book. And I mean, it's fine for what it is, but it does feel uneven, because it is just a bunch of songs taken from, a bunch of different projects. So anyway, after that, we got The Wings of Love, which is basically, with one exception, China Doll, which Richard Street sings. Otherwise, it's basically just the Temptations featuring Dennis Edwards. Jeffrey Bowen loved Dennis' voice, and there's no reason you shouldn't. He had a great voice. But he didn't really want to hear from anyone else. And that record didn't do beautifully. It didn't do all that well. House Party didn't either. Neither was an over-the-top disaster, but neither of them did particularly well. So then we come to a meeting between Berry Gordy and Otis Williams in the back offices of Motown. Otis wanted to write songs, and he wanted a publishing deal. Berry Gordy, of course, notoriously didn't give those things out. There was, to say that, it would not be far-fetched to say that there was a tremendous conflict of interest within the inner workings of Motown. I mean, let's think about this for a second, right? So Motown manages you. Motown produces your records. They write your songs. And they do all of your marketing, which is what a record label, of course, is supposed to do. But they're doing all these things, right? And there's no interference from any outside party. Oh, and as I said, they're also your publisher. So they're doing all these things, and it's just not a good idea. It was all a bit too much. And it's not to say that it didn't work for a lot of years. It did. And Motown itself made a tremendous amount of money. The acts didn't always make a whole lot of money, though, because of this conflict of interest. But the record label made out like bandits. So the idea of a split deal, the idea of a publishing deal for any of its acts was absolutely unheard of. And Barry was not having it initially. But Otis wouldn't let it go, and then finally they agreed to a split deal. So you have Joe Bett music, if you look at the copyrights for the stuff that they wrote from this point, for this next record really, and even beyond that when they came back to Motown, you have like Joe Bett music, and then you have Tall Temptations music. So that changed, and nobody ever imagined it could really. And so anyway, so they go into the studio to make a record featuring their songs, called The Temptations Do the Temptations. And with the exception of 2 songs, that's what that album is. And their songs are actually very good. One of the outside songs is No Stoppin' Till We Set the Whole World Rockin'. It's just fantastic. But they had Who Are You and What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life, which is great. It's a great song. I love that synth line. There's also... Why Can't We Get Together? Love that song. There's some good stuff there. There really is. Some of it's a little broken lyrically, but musically it's good. And they wrote these songs with Benjamin Wright, and of course Benjamin Wright knows his way around a song, no problem. And it's mostly because of him that this stuff worked. And so anyway, so fast forwarding, of course, the album does nothing, and I think it was right around the time that it was released that the Otis specifically kind of decided that the Temptations were not being promoted as they should have been, and they were being a bit disrespected, and they decided to leave the label, which was not a good idea for anyone, but it certainly wasn't a good idea for the Temptations. So anyway, Motown has no reason to push the record, so they don't, and the record bombs. It just completely tanked. There was no promotion put into it whatsoever, and they end up at Atlantic. Now, for those of you who saw the miniseries, you'll note that when they went to Atlantic, they didn't sign to Atlantic the way that, honestly, the way a white act would, which is a bit ironic if you think about it. But the group itself wasn't signed to regular Atlantic. They were actually signed to Atlantic Records' Black Division. The irony here is that Atlantic Records began as an R&B record label, so that they would have a special Black division was a bit strange. But it does make sense given the climate of the climate of the company and the climate of the time and the acts that they'd signed, because they had they had hard rock acts like Led Zeppelin and Bad Company, and they had a bunch of other things too. I'm no expert when it comes to who was signed at that point. The Foreigner, just rock acts of that sort, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash was on Atlantic. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. There were a lot of these kind of, these white acts that would either chart pop or would chart rock, and they certainly had R&B acts too, but they were all on Atlantic's Black Division, and so the Temptations were signed to the Black Division, and in those days, the Black Division of a record label was a bit like purgatory in the sense that it wasn't as heavily staffed as the regular pop rock division would be, and so they weren't going to get the same amount of attention. So this was, you almost have to think that at this point, if you're Otis, it's like in this moment you kind of have to realize your mistake, and it was hard to ignore. Anyway, so in 1977 they go into the studio with Baker Harrison Young, the greatest production team that has ever been, in my opinion. And they create this amazing album called Here to Tempt You. Stupid title. Such a stupid title. Here, as in here, to tempt you. Get it? Remarkably dumb title. But other than Extensions of a Man by Donny Hathaway, it's the best album I've ever heard in my life. It is absolutely my second favorite album, and not by much. It's not far off the first at all. It's just, I mean, there are no skips on this thing. It's such a great record. I mean, Think for Yourself is great. in a Lifetime is great, which was written by future Temptations member Ron Tyson, by the way. There are a few things on the album that were co-written by Ron Tyson because he was writing for them and while he was in the Love Committee and a bunch of other things. That's a whole other issue. But great writer, Ron is. I Could Never Stop Loving You, obviously, which I covered and slept on, as you know. Why Can't We Come in, or Can We Come and Share in Love? Great song. Let's Live in Peace. I love Let's Live in Peace. Just such great chord changes in it. Even if the lyric's a little broken, the chord changes are fantastic. Snake in the Grass is fun. Richard's really fun on it. It's such a great record. Read Between the Lines is even fun. That's an Otis lead, and even that's fun. So it's a fantastic record. Highly recommend. If you've never heard Here to Tempt You, just go. I told you this and slept on. Why haven't you done it already? Why do I have to repeat myself? But so anyway, so after this, they were in with them, I think, on a 2-album deal, possibly 3, depending on the way it went. So they went back into the studio, this time with the Holland Brothers, and they created the album Bareback. Another really dumb album title, but if you know the title track, it's not so foolish. The album cover art, which you are now seeing, I think it's over there, isn't it? Yeah, it's right. Look at it. I can't with it. It's just and if you think that's bad, and it is, wait till I turn it over. Look at this. Yes. They're literally sitting back to back with each other, bareback. Get it? Why? Who thought of this? What substance were they on? Like, you got to be high to think that this is a good idea. The front cover, okay, fine, I guess. It wasn't that unusual for its time. And I do like the font, actually. You can tell that I like the font because I reproduced it on the single. But the back is just, it's reprehensible. I mean, think about this. If you're in a record store in 1978, and you are a self-respecting human being, and of course all of you are, would you really be that quick to go into your local record store and be seen with that album? I don't think I would be. I kind of don't think you would be either. And I don't think a lot of people were. It's one of the worst album packages I've ever seen. It's unbelievably bad. So the hot garbage this week is even extending to the cover. Like, it's just, like, why? Why would anybody think that this is a good idea? All right, fine, I'll shut up. But the rest of the album, and this is what makes the cover design so criminal to me, because obviously I've already said the cover is, the album art is a Greek tragedy starring the Temptations. But the album is so unbelievably good. It's better than it has any right to be based on that cover art. I mean, the Holland Brothers knew what they were doing. Thank you very much. Mystic Woman's a little silly, but the rest of it's not. I mean, so easy to love, Ever Ready Love, Wake Up to Me. That's got to be one of Glenn's best vocals. Glenn Leonard is just a beast, absolute beast. Everybody always looks at Eddie Kendricks as being the Temptations' greatest falsetto singer, and he's amazing, of course. I'm not deaf, but I actually think Glenn was better. At me in the comment section. Go ahead. I know. Let me have it down there, please. It's fine. I'll entertain it. I'll answer you. Fine. I'll take it like a man. Go ahead. Go ahead. I know. I see it. But he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. And the record itself has no apologies to make except for one. So remember when I said that every group makes mistakes? Well, the Temptations make them too. And there's a big glaring mistake on this album. Just absolutely glaring. On top of the fact that because Here to Tempt You bombed, Lewis has only 1.5 leads on this album, because he leads That's When You Need Love, which is fantastic, and he has half of I Don't Know How to Let You Go. I Just Don't Know How to Let You Go, which is fantastic too. Great vocal. Great song. But other than that little mistake, there's an even bigger one. And it's gigantic. In fact, it's hot garbage worthy. It's a little tune called I See My Child. Now, this song is especially grievous because the subject matter is good. It's a noble idea to tackle this subject. It feels very much to me like it's about Otis' divorce. I see my child standing over there with you. It's a lonely room we're standing in with a lawyer and judge deciding the dividing of our lives. So this is obviously about that. It's obviously felt. And Otis is singing those lines. So the concept is noble. And I don't think there's enough of this. But it's just written so poorly. The lyric is just so absolutely terrible. So let's listen to this together, you and me. And I'm gonna have to talk during this one because it's unbelievably bad. It's so terrible. So we're gonna watch this one together and take a listen to this lyric. The lyric is mostly what the problem is. So we're gonna dive in here. This is I See My Child by The Temptations. Beautiful so far. The string arrangement is gorgeous.
Don't cry. Run along. Someday you might understand.
Nah, bro. Not really. It's silly.
I see my child standing over there with you. It's a lonely room we're standing in, with a lawyer and judge deciding the dividing of our lives.
It's a mess vocally too. The lead.
Yes, I can't explain. No, just when the thrill, turning to pain.
Why would you tell your child this?
The love I have for you, Mom,
I forgot about this part.
ain't the same love.
Please forgive me. So it's 2 leads total.
For you. Though it seems I don't love her,
He's almost saving it.
I'll always
So
love your mom. Now go on, take mama's hand.
It feels like a different writer.
Don't cry, run along. Someday you might understand.
See, that needs it's a bad meter.
Roads may change, yes, but try to see. Oh, one thing remains, yes, we're
It's a nice idea. It's just
the love I have for you, son, ain't the kind of love that will never stop.
his vocal is almost saving this. Almost.
Might find someone else. You both will stay right here in my heart.
Love his
In
voice.
my heart.
Love his voice.
I see a child standing over there with you.
Just if you're gonna say this, say it well.
It's a lonely room we're standing, with a lawyer and just deciding the dividing of our lives.
Oops, Lewis.
I see my child standing there, standing there, standing there.
See, that works. Otis is a good harmony singer. He really is. Totally in tune. You just can't lead with anything, that's all. As soon as I say it, just slightly out, but who cares? I'm not really bothered, I just noticed it. You see what I mean? Like, it's just kind of, it's a great idea. It really is. I think it's a very nice idea. It's just, lyrically, it's just broken. It's just completely broken. There are nice ideas in there. I think what might have made it work a little bit better is if Otis would have, and the other members of the group were involved in the lyrics too, so it's not just his fault, but I think maybe what would have been better is if they would have given, and this happens too sometimes with songwriters, just get a real lyricist in the room and talk to them about what you're thinking and then let them craft the lyric. But Otis was not up to this task. Unfortunately, he never is. He's just not. Otis has never been a good songwriter. It's just not his thing. He fancies himself a songwriter. I know this. He's certainly written things in the past, or collaborated with others, never by himself. And the results have never been, Treat Her Like a Lady is good, but that's because it's mostly Ollie Woodson. It's not, Otis is not really involved in much of that at all. You can tell. Excuse me. What's another? You Are Necessary in My Life from Legacy. It starts promisingly enough, but then by the time you enter the first verse, it's just a disaster. It has no melody. The lyric is poor. Otis is just not a songwriter. He's just not. He may fancy himself as one, but he's not. He's not in his lane in the least bit when he does that. Elevator Eyes is poor. There are many songs that he's written lyrics for that just don't work. He's just not a songwriter. So it's a shame. I kind of almost begrudgingly refer to this as hot garbage, but it is what it is. It should be so much better than it is because the concept is a great one. It's just fleshed out really poorly. The music has no apologies to make. The arrangement has no apologies to make. The playing is very good, really good. It's excellent. And the production is good. It's just the lyric is so bad that is what makes it hot garbage. And so there it is. So if you disagree with me and you think I have lost my ever-loving mind, you would not be the first to think so. Please tell me in the comment section. As you will note, I have responded to absolutely every comment that has ever been left. And I will keep the streak going because I think it's fun to do that. So hit me up in the comment section if you agree or disagree. Thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate it when you watch these. Hopefully you have enjoyed Hot Garbage. There is more of it coming. There's definitely more Slept On coming. That list is just a mile long, so I'll chip away at it, I promise. But yeah, so I'll do more of these, of course. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, it's cool. Be honest. Give it a thumbs down. I don't depend on thumbs up. If you didn't like it, tell me so. Subscribe to the channel, please, too. I've got more stuff like this coming all the time. Hit the bell. You know the bell. You've seen it. Hit the bell. Then you'll know when the next video comes out. You'll know right away. They always drop at like 9 a.m. I don't know why I've settled on 9 a.m. in the morning for videos, but for some reason I have. That's just when they drop. So yeah, hit the bell and then you'll know when they drop. I drop videos fairly frequently as long as I'm feeling well. You'll get videos fairly regularly from me. I've even got something else planned that's not video related, so stay tuned for that too. So anyway, again, I repeat, because darn it, I mean it. Thank you very much for watching. Follow me on Twitter, vinylalbumcovers.com without the U in album. That's where you find me on Twitter. That's basically where I'm playing. I also exist on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not so much on Instagram because I think I figured out a purpose for it. But the purpose that I have in mind for it, there's just going to kind of be less. There'll be less content for it because that's kind of going to be more like a behind the scenes thing. But Twitter and Facebook will get the same kind of thing. So in fact, on Facebook, I'll be able to, I can be a little more verbose, but I'm mostly on Twitter. I know where the action is, and it's just more fun on Twitter. It's a challenge too. But at any rate, find me on the social networks. I would love to interact with you there. I do plenty of it over there. Yeah, don't forget the thumbs up or the thumbs down and the subscribe. But if you're going to do thumbs down, tell me what you didn't like. I'm interested in getting better. And the suggestions I've got have been really, really good ones. I love a good critique. So yeah, until the next video, until the next dosage of hot garbage, I have and will continue to be Ed, and keep listening to bad music.